Even from the comfort of a modern aircraft, we can still marvel at the flight of a bird. To discover more, we must take to the air ourselves and fly with them. Every bird is a miracle of natural design, but each one is also a compromise. As greylag geese migrate the 500 miles from Iceland to Scotland, their streamlined wing and body design is working at its limit. Flying at 40 miles an hour, their hearts are beating over 400 times a minute. Once every second, they need to take a breath. Such exertion creates heat, so the birds keep cool by flying at altitude, which for some geese can be even as high as 35,000 feet. Here they can profit from less air resistance and faster winds. The wings are driven by strong breast muscles using body fat as fuel. Extra weight has been put on for the flight, but to save energy the birds fly in formation, the uplift of air from the leading bird helping those behind. As they descend, they become more vulnerable to birds of prey or guns. The aerial efficiency of their shape is now a liability, so to lose height quickly, the birds simply spill the air from their wings. They plummet downwards in a dizzy display known as whiffling. As they land, the wings are tilted back, both to gain lift and to act as a brake against the air. The wings flap again to slow their descent, and the feet help cushion the landing. The webbed feet are also held out to resist the air and help slow the bird. The greylag is one of the heaviest of our geese, but such techniques ensure a gentle landing. And water also helps. Heavier birds have different limits to their performance. The swan has to have a long takeoff, so it can only get into the air from large bodies of water. It faces into the wind to increase its airspeed, and its feet help propel it forward. At 12 kilograms, a mute swan is near the weight limit of any flying bird. If it were to become heavier, the weight of muscles needed to beat larger wings would cancel out any extra uplift the wings might give. As it is, the swan must fly fast to stay in the air, and it needs water to cushion its landing. Its webbed feet help by acting as water skis. The coot also has problems taking off, for large size is not the only thing that hampers flight. Coots are relatively heavy because they feed underwater. They have small wings because they live in dense vegetation. The advantages of this way of life far outweigh the disadvantage of a slow takeoff, and the coot can always dive to escape danger. Their feet aren't webbed, so they can't land like a swan. Instead, they run along the water and beat their wings to prevent somersaulting. Birds that don't dive, like the teal, are affected by other factors. Its dabbling takes it to the water's edge, and in this danger zone, a quick takeoff is vital. The teal is a specialist in fast, direct flight, reaching speeds of over 40 miles an hour. Its narrow, pointed wings offer little resistance to the air and only provide enough lift if the bird flies fast. Ducks with smaller wings must fly even faster. Some reach 75 miles an hour, making ducks among the fastest birds. To catch such birds, their predators need to be even quicker. The peregrine is an unsurpassed aerial hunter with an eyesight to match. Good vision, too, is important for the duck. The neck keeps the eyes level by compensating for the movement produced by the wings. The peregrine's shape gives it great speed. Like ducks, its wings are relatively short, with a narrow tip which produces little drag. Powerful muscles drive the wings through the air as the bird alternates between fast flapping flight and soaring. The spread tail acts as a rudder, giving fine control. It can gain height easily by soaring on wind deflected upwards by the hills. From this vantage point, it can easily spot approaching prey. Unable to soar, the teal has to maintain its flight by continuous flapping. The longer tail of the falcon gives it more control than the duck. By gaining height, the falcon can achieve yet another advantage over a bird that closely matches it in speed. As it sweeps back its wings, it greatly reduces resistance and slices through the air like an arrow at over 100 miles an hour. The rook has no need for great speed, so its wings are much larger than the duck or peregrine. This general design suits the varied lifestyle of such a cosmopolitan bird. As well as being maneuverable, it can even soar if the wind is strong. The buzzard is built to a similar design. Although to the rooks the buzzard could be a possible threat, they react to it not by fleeing, but by attack. To the rooks, slow flight is not a disadvantage, for by mobbing a predator they can drive it away. Although their wing designs are similar, the buzzard's large size makes it less maneuverable. The rooks, therefore, are not in any danger, and through their persistence, the buzzard loses height. Although not agile or fast, the buzzard has other ways of mastering the air. It lives in a world of ever-changing air currents. Flying into the wind, it's searching for an area of uprising air. As it reaches the slope where the wind hits the hillside, it feels an updraft. The buzzard's flight is now effortless. Its broad wings are built for slow soaring, and by altering their shape, it can fine-tune the amount of lift they provide. It rises so easily because, like all birds, its wings are curved like inverted shallow cups. The air in the curved underside is at a high pressure, while that on the upper side is at a much lower pressure, as the feathers flicking up clearly show. In consequence, the bird tends to rise. Most birds depend on this curving of the wing to keep them airborne, even in flapping flight. But by soaring, the buzzard uses up to 20 times less energy, so it needs little effort to cover large areas as it searches the ground for food. It feeds mainly on carrion. To carry its extra load, it has to use flapping flight. Although it nests in woodland, its large wings prevent it hunting among trees. Woodland birds are built to a different design. The jay is typical. Its dipping flight is the result of having the short wings and a long tail, which are characteristic of most woodland birds. The jay is hunted by birds of a similar design. The goshawk may be the size of a buzzard, but it has a long tail and short wings, like the jay. Short wings allow birds to fly through dense undergrowth, while the long tail compensates by giving the bird extra stability. Such skill is vital for both hunted and hunter. The jay's smaller size can save its life. An even smaller size gives advantages to the wren. Its short, rounded wings are ideal for a life in dense undergrowth. It needs to whir such small wings constantly just to stay airborne. Small size and short wings are very useful if you live by plucking food from thick vegetation. Birds that take their food on the wing need longer and larger wings. The spotted flycatcher is about the size of a sparrow, but its longer wings give greater lift and very precise control. Operating from favourite perches, its manoeuvrability allows it to pluck insects from the air. Such exertion requires frequent rest, but the flycatcher is also capable of long migration flights, even as far as southern Africa. But until cold weather kills its aerial prey, it will hunt in woodland glades. The wide open fields offer different possibilities for other aerial hunters. They are patrolled by another migrant from southern Africa. With only the occasional tree to obstruct its flight, its wings have become very long indeed. There are few birds that can fly as aerobatically as a swallow, although its wing design would be a hindrance in woodland. Its long pointed wings have little drag, so it needs little energy to fly. A large wing area allows it to fly at slow speeds, and the long spread tail helps too. Such perfect flight has made the swallow a famed migrant. But many other species migrate as well, and even birds of an average, unspecialized design at times need to travel long distances. A starling can fly at 35 miles an hour, almost twice the speed of a swallow. Its shorter wings mean it uses more energy, but even as it hurtles along a hedgerow, it spends some of its time resting on the wing, for its wing beats are broken by short periods of gliding. The outstretched wings give a small but valuable saving in energy. They also allow the bird to take a steadier view of the world. Such energy saving helps migrating birds, but if the starling were any smaller, the drag from the outstretched wings would be greater than the uplift that they provide. Smaller birds with shorter wings need a different technique. Birds like goldfinches rest with their wings held against their body. Angling themselves like a ski jumper, they keep drag to a minimum as they save energy. Each autumn, many small birds use such bounding flight to migrate south. It's a time of mass movement and a test of endurance. Some stock up with food before leaving, others find food on the way. They all try to avoid the worst of the weather. Flight efficiency is now stretched to its limit, but some make the journey with very little effort. Istanbul in Turkey is halfway point for this master of effortless migration. The long, broad wing of the white stork allows the bird to soar slowly. As they glide, the storks are searching for rising air. When they find it, the leading birds turn and the rest follow. The uplift is created as bare ground or buildings reflect back the heat. The warmed air rises in a column known as a thermal, and the storks rise with it. Up to 200,000 storks pass through Istanbul each autumn. Flocks up to 5,000 strong will turn to stay within the rising air. When they reach the top, they glide off in the direction of their migration, spreading out as they search for the next thermal. Their long glide will carry them over the shortest stretch of water between Europe and Asia, the Bosphorus. Most of Europe's storks migrate either across the Straits of Gibraltar or over this stretch of water. Any other route involves a long sea crossing, and thermals seldom form over water. Although this route is longer, the storks save energy by gliding between thermals. Once they've crossed the mile width of the Bosphorus, they turn again in a thermal and begin to rise. Now, in Asia, they will use many such thermals to carry them on to Africa. Istanbul attracts many other migrants. Some are eastern races of British birds. The peregrine doesn't depend on thermals. It uses powerful muscles to drive efficient wings and feeds on other migrants for fuel. A swallow shows a similarity of its swept back wings as it mobs the falcon. It's a basic design that reaches perfection in the even longer wings of the swift. Migration is easy for a bird that often flies 500 miles a day. It can rise on the slightest current of air and even sleep on the wing. Its long, thin wings allow this alpine swift control at slow speed as its mouth gapes to take flying insects. Swifts are the smallest soaring birds. Although buzzards specialize in soaring, migrating birds will readily flap if necessary. But when thermals form, they adapt the soaring technique used for finding food. Both the honey and the common buzzard then save energy by spiraling up with the stalks. The storks can easily outsoar the buzzards, but their larger wings can be a liability if they leave the land and the thermals that rise from it. Although most glide off east over the Bosphorus, some take a shorter but more hazardous route south over the Marmara Sea. There is 30 miles of sea ahead of them, and it's not producing thermals. For every 100 meters they glide, they drop another 10. As they move closer to the water, they have to flap to stay airborne. They're now using 20 times the effort that they used when gliding. For some, that effort begins to take its toll. In bad weather, many hundreds may drown. It's now at the limit of its design. The stork has problems because it's so large. If it were to flap for the entire 6,000-mile journey, it would need so much extra muscle and fat that it would become impossibly heavy. By using thermals for most of the way, storks need to put on little extra weight, but the journey takes several weeks. Shortcuts, though hazardous, save time. It reaches land, so the risks for this stork have been worthwhile. Every bird is a compromise between design and behavior. Storks do not have the short pointed wings of fast geese and ducks, the swept-back wings of aerial hunters, or the short rounded wings of woodland birds. For storks, the perfect wing is the one that can soar on a breath of warm air. Like all birds, their wings are suited with marvelous perfection to the particular lives that they lead in flight.